Hi, everybody. This is Kevin. I think we have a
Hi.
few people coming in, but
Okay.
we'll get started. I'm going to have you, Kevin, speak a little bit about yourself. Not too much, though.
Not too much. No, I'll let you control that. So I might get carried away.
Just messing with you. First, I want you to tell us a little bit about how your mediumship journey began.
How it all began.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the answers to many of the questions are going to relate to one word, and that's natural.
Hmm.
Um, because it's something you're not aware of. Obviously, as a child, it's not something that you see to be any different than what other people sense, what other people see. And I can't say that I used to walk around seeing spirit all the time because I didn't. But there was a knowing that when you were alone, and I spent an awful lot of time as a child because I was brought up in the fens, what we call the fens here, which is just farmland and trees, and that's about it. You might find a house 2 or 3 miles up the road, that sort of thing. But so a lot of the adventures, if you like, were ones that I guess I just walked alone through nature, I guess through woods, trees, forests, that sort of thing. But there was always a sensing of knowing that you're not alone, that there was something else there, and you accepted that. And you even at times would communicate with that, thought-wise, you would communicate with it, even things like the trees, the wildlife, all that sort of thing, you would sense response as well. So you never saw it as anything any different than being with a group of people and sensing from those people or sensing energy from those people and the energies around those people. It was no different walking through a forest and sensing that energy and that sense of not being alone. And there were energies there that you couldn't visually obviously see, but you knew they were there. But you saw that as quite a natural part of who you were. You didn't truly understand it as a very young child, but you always knew there was purpose and there was reason for being. It's, I guess, I saw my first spirit when I was about probably 8 or 9 years old, and I knew who he was. I knew he was spirit. No one had ever taught me this. No one ever spoke of it. It was never spoken of at all. He was not, definitely not a religious family. The only time we'd go to church would be the typical weddings and funerals and christenings and that kind of thing. But it was something that was never impressed upon me. We never had to go to church. We never had to believe in God. It was kind of free choice, if you like, how we interpreted that. So it was not something that was impressed on me. I had no idea of spirit, no idea of ghosts, no idea of anything like that. But the first energy that I saw of a young man, I looked at him, he looked at me, and I just carried on doing what I was doing, and he went, and I knew who he was. So there was no fear, nothing like, run a mile, I've just seen the ghost, anything like that. It was just totally accepted by myself, and but I never questioned it. I mean, even to this day, I think, well, why wasn't I scared? Why wasn't I frightened? And it happened with animals too, animals that um we lost. One being a cat that was by my bed, and unbeknown to me, because I was a child, I wasn't. It was a wild cat, but I spent an awful lot of time with it, and it always followed me everywhere. I had no idea that cat had passed, and my parents had picked it up off the road outside the house and not told me, and it was by my bed. And the thing was, my mother hated cats. She would not have a cat in the house, and the only fear I had was my mother finding that cat in my bedroom by my bed, when in fact it was spirit. It wasn't alive at all. And I can remember just leaning down the side of my bed to actually touch the cat, and it just gone as quick as that. So that's kind of gives you an indication as to my early beginnings. But I think probably for many, probably the people who are here now, a lot of this is that sense of knowing.
Yeah.
You just know. You've not read it. You've not necessarily experienced an awful lot, but you have that sense of simply knowing. And you can spend a lifetime questioning that sense of knowing. Why am I like this? Why do I know these things? Why do I sense these things? But like I said earlier on, a lot of this all boils down to it's that naturalness of being who you are. The more natural you are as a person, the more chance there is that you will naturally sense. So if you can control that natural side of who you are and allow that to emanate from you more than what I call the plastic side of self, a bit like the data self, the Facebook self, the tick, the TikTok self. If you can be who you are out in this big wide world, and it's not easy, but if you can do that, then everything about your spiritual side will naturally enhance. And I think your senses will grow with that.
I want to ask you a question about evidential mediumship, but I don't really like the word evidential, even though it's evidence that we pull through. And I know
Yeah.
you don't like that word either. So what do you feel mediumship really is at its core?
Well, it is at its core. I could answer most of these with that one word. What mediumship is at its core is the ability to be in the natural self, being attuned to the natural self, so that you can emanate that natural self in such a way that spirit can see it, they can sense it, they can, most of all, they can work with it. So mediumship itself is not, I mean, it's a title, isn't it? That's how we have to look at it. It's a title. We could have called it anything really, couldn't we? Middleman,
Mhm.
middlewoman, communicator. We could call it all sorts of things. Okay, but being human, we have to put a sticker on it. We have to label it. We have to be able to, well, the only way we can talk about it, obviously, is to label it. But sometimes it's good to think outside of the label. And when we look at, the core of mediumship, I think one thing we need to understand is that mediumship itself is that grain of sand on the beach, isn't it? It is such a small part of the bigger picture. And it's important, I think, especially if you're learning the what shall I say, art of mediumship, if you like, that we understand that this is not the be all and end all of what we're trying to achieve. It's just a small part of that being, that self that we use, or we're trying to attune to a better state, if you like, to be able to pass on messages and what have you. But again, we have to understand that the passing on of messages, again, is that grain of sand on the beach. It is not the be all and end all of what we are doing. And there's many things behind that reasoning, if you like. I'm a true believer in that we can hold an energy back, or we can at least inhibit its ability to move forward by the sense of when it senses our own deep grief. Because spirit understand better than what we do. They understand the purpose of life. They understand the purpose and the meaning behind our own existence. It is not to grieve for loved ones for years on end. Yes, we will miss them. Yes, you know, we will naturally grieve, but we also have to move on, and so does spirit. And it's important that they have that tie with us, that love for us. What's top of their list is that we move forward from the day they pass. We will grieve naturally, but we need to move forward because we have purpose, and so do they. And what we can do is inhibit their purpose, not only our own, but theirs also.
I understand that
So,
totally.
as a medium, obviously, we help to give closure, which in turn helps that person in front of us who we're giving that message to let go, to move forward. We're doing a double whammy, if you like. We are allowing two energies to move on. Sometimes we forget that and we focus simply on helping closure for that sitter. And it's not all about that. It's about those two energies, both those energies. Sometimes when you give messages and you can see those messages being accepted, you sometimes, if you're lucky, you can sense that kind of relief, not only from the sitter, but from that energy that's with you, that you have heard them, you have sensed them, you have passed that message on. And like I said, both those energies can now move forward with their purpose. Purpose is life itself. Now, there's more to it behind that, but there is a purpose for us. And there's nothing worse for spirit to sense an energy not fulfilling its purpose.
I agree.
Yeah,
Couldn't say it any better than that. That's great.
thank you.
So, what role does surrender play in your mediumship?
Sorry?
What role does surrendering play in your mediumship?
I'm not hearing it very well. This is just, let me just check
I
this.
have I have my speaker covered. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you a bit better there. Yeah.
What role does surrendering play in your mediumship? That's
Okay. I've got you. Yeah. I've got you. Yeah, I mean, we need to
a
look at
hard question.
it's a good one in a sense, because at the end of the day, it, it links to many things, doesn't it? Trust is one of them, because you wouldn't be able to truly surrender self if you hadn't got that trust. You have to have that trust in the energies that work with you in order for you to be able to surrender self. Now, in order to have that trust, I mean, there's many sides to that. One of those obviously is experience, I guess, because like I say to my students, experience will equal trust, because you will realize after many years of practicing mediumship that they will not let you down. They are there. They will always be there. There will never be a day where you sense nothing. There will be a day when you think you can sense nothing, and that is different, because that is the human side of what you're trying to do. It thinks it's sensing nothing. What happens, especially with new people, is Mr. Panic sets in, and then you're building a brick wall and you might as well just go home, basically. So a lot of surrendering self links to that element of trust. Once you have that element of trust, surrendering self is so much simpler. And the mechanical side is, we've probably read too many books in our lifetimes, and attended too many courses there. I say it. The problem is when things are turned plastic, when there is processing, the processes that are installed in our minds as to how things work, what you must do, and when it doesn't happen in a certain way, then we get frustration, then we tend to lose trust, which inhibits surrender. There, there are many different aspects of that question, really. But I think personally is a true understanding of how simple, how natural mediumship, trance mediumship, light work, what healing is, a true understanding of its naturalness, then that surrender will also become a natural part.
I kind of feel it has a lot to do with ourselves, surrendering
Yeah,
within ourselves. So
yeah,
what I've noticed too with and I'm by going further, I don't want to get into detail. Is a lot of mediums that I've worked with give a lot of detail instead of
right.
essence, instead of memories or go into it. And when I'm trying to help people realize is the communication, which is what you helped me with. Is it like keeping the line of communication open with
Yeah.
spirit? And I'd like for you to get into explaining that.
Well, without too much detail, and what?
So when I say details, like bits and pieces that we've talked about before, like you'll
Okay, when
get,
you talk about that opening of communication, that hanging on to that
yeah, it's like you
communicate,
get a
yeah,
lot of people, a lot of mediums who give details, and I'm not offending. I don't mean to offend anybody, but they give like, I see a red car. They're showing me a red car. They're showing me a white house. They're showing me a school bus. Little details without giving any essence or
okay,
any story behind it.
right. Let's step into shoes of spirit.
Okay. Yay.
Okay, let's not stop. Let's stop thinking about it on our side of life, if you like, from the human mind. We need to look at it from another aspect. We need to look at it from the spirit side, the energy side. And I think it really helps sometimes to put yourself in the shoes of spirit and put yourself in say you are a mother energy. You've managed to merge with the medium. You are in a place that you can project and impress image, maybe the sense of sound, maybe personality. You are in that place, and your daughter is sat before that medium. Now you imagine what that must feel like. Okay, you have this opportunity to pass on this message of love, I'm okay, all that kind of thing that you hear to your daughter. I'm surprised when we get a medium who says, okay, I've got mum, and mum is telling me that you don't like your job and you want to change your job. Now, for me, I would probably get up and walk off because I think if that's my mother, who I've been grieving for a long time, and I want this message so badly from her, and she's telling the things she wants to talk to me about is the fact that I don't like my job. No. What is the first thing mother's going to say? She's going to want me to know that she is fine. There's no need to feel the way you do about me. Now, she's going to want to obviously give some sort of circumstantial evidence that we know it's her, but I'm sure for many people who've experienced their own readings, and when the loved one has come through, you know who it is sometimes just as the same as a medium does. You sense that energy coming in. You feel that love coming in from that loved one. You know, you feel it. And it's no different than when mum used to put you in her arms and give you that cuddle, that feeling. You're sat there in front of that medium and you're feeling that, you're sensing that. Is mum going to tell me to change my car? Is mum going to tell me to do? No, there's going to be evidence there of some description. Maybe a memory, maybe fine. Maybe the last thing they did together. Maybe that last shopping trip. Maybe those awful pair of shoes she bought on that last shopping. They are all going to relate to memory from that energy of maybe the passing, maybe a few weeks before. There will be things that relate. I do not get, and if I'm that energy talking to my loved one from spirit, I am not going to go on about their job, the color of their wallpaper. I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm going to want to emanate that love. I'm going to want to make sure they feel that and they know I'm okay. So I don't think we have to give an awful lot of evidence. We don't need it because that sitter knows that's mother. If you even that personality that a medium senses and mimics a person, no, a good medium will mimic that personality. They will say things in a way like mum used to say them. And sometimes even in demonstration, you will walk that platform in a way that mum walked and you're not even knowing you're
No,
doing it. It's not until afterwards to say you walked just like you waved your arms exactly how mum used to wave. You know, I think we can waffle on a bit, but I with evidence, and I think sometimes I question it. Sometimes I think I'm filling in,
Yeah.
and there's nothing worse than a medium that gives that piece of evidence like red car, because that
That's very
sitter
cool.
probably knew 20 people who had red cars. It's not relevant. The only time, and as mediums, we need to know that. So what we do is we throw that red car back. Is this your red car? Did you pass in this red car? Is your favorite? We need more. We can't just give red car. And what we see an awful lot of nowadays is the medium will get that red car and they will question the sitter with it. Whoa, go home.
Yeah.
No, you do not question sitters at all. You question spirit. They are the ones that are giving you that evidence. Okay, whose car is this? Is this your car? And you get in the habit of doing it really fast and you sense that yes. Something else I teach is that yes or no scenario where we learn yes. We know how that yes feels. We know how that no feels. So it helps us with that questioning. Is this your red car? Yes, we sense a yes. Yes. Okay. Your dad showed me a red car that he owned. Okay. What is it? No, and you give me more, give me more. And you will get, he passed. Okay. You understood. He passed in that car. So rather than sitting there looking at your sitter going, red car, did your dad have a red car? Did he pass in? Why are you asking the sitter that? What? No, you need to be asking the energy so that the evidence you give is precise, quick, accurate, and they know without doubt who you have stood by you. So yeah, well, I think we can waffle on a bit too much sometimes about.
I'm trying to get you to because it's and you are doing very well. I like it when you start opening up and be yourself, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I've come across is mediums going really, really fast. Show me this, giving this, and you can tell their ego is getting into it. And that's not, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but the truth is the truth. Their ego is getting into it because they're starting to give so much detail, but they're not going back and giving anything else. And so I don't feel the essence in it. I don't feel the, I don't feel the
Um,
connection with it. You know what
It's
I
all
mean?
about control. If you
Mhm.
imagine, doing a demonstration with 150 people, and imagine the energies that are trying to connect, that you are sensing that are around you, and how easy that would be to get a bit from there, bit from there, bit from there, mix it all up in the bag. You can get a couple of really good pieces of evidence to the person that has got their hand up. Yes, I know who that is. I understand who that is. And you get a really good couple of pieces of evidence. And then you're trying to, like you said, a lot of it's to do with ego. And then you start going really quickly. And before you know it, you've got bits coming in all over the place and you give some real rubbish. And they go, well, maybe it's not who I thought it was. He never had that. He never had a red car. But that red car's coming from over there. You're in it. You're not focusing. Once when you throw things back, sounds a bit harsh that, but it's the only way of describing it. When you throw that back, what you have sensed, not only are you opening that line of communication, you are also focusing on it. So you're getting the strength between you and that Pacific energy. It's starting to build, and you are focused on it. Whatever's going on here is going on. We all know what it's like to some degree when we're working away with the energy with us. We have the loved one in front of us, especially in like demonstration, and we're working with them, and we're getting let's say a mother coming in, and you feel this mum's coming in. She wants to pass information on. You're talking with dad, with the daughter over here. We we need to start looking at this and forget all the processes and things that have been drummed into us over the years. We are talking with human beings out of body. That's the only different. They may have a different perspective on things, obviously. They have a different awareness than we do. So obviously they see things a lot differently probably than we do. But at the end of the day, we are talking about conscious energy. a personality. Okay, it's wore the t-shirt. It's just been here. It understands life. It knows what we're about. Okay, so we communicate with them in that way. It may well be through thought, the vibration of thought, but we communicate with them in that way. We don't bow before them. We don't
Yeah.
need to do that. They don't want that. That's the last thing they want. They want to get their message across. They don't want to waste 10 minutes while we're bowing. And, that obviously there are different states of energy. There are higher beings. That is a different thing altogether. But as mediums working on the level of giving messages, if you like, we need to see and understand that these are human beings and we need to treat them in that way. So while that energy is coming in here, you don't have to ignore it. I'd speak to them and I'd do it out loud. I say, okay, sweetheart, hang on, hang on, hang on. I'll be there. I'll be there. And I focus on the message I'm giving. Then I will switch. Okay, okay, okay. In you
So
come.
you're separating them.
Yeah.
So you
You
answered
have to.
another question
Yeah.
without asking it. But what about the mediums that are getting information from one spirit and they're receiving it really fast? And they're receiving all these bits and bits and bits? What is your advice into slowing it down? What did you teach me? Slowing it
Right.
down.
It's about control. At the end of the day, if we go back to wearing the shoes of spirit, this is good stuff. This is great. I can speak to my daughter. I can put her mind at rest. And that energy is quick and it is fast. You can see it in some mediums. It's like a nervous energy as they're working. But at the end of the day, who's the boss here? We are. Okay, it's too fast. Please stand back, slow down. They have total respect for us. They will slow down. We tell them this is too fast. I can't work. Why do we see them as something else from outer space, from the planet Zorb? They are not. They are energy of conscious beings. They are us. So if somebody was talking too fast to us in the street and we couldn't understand, hey, slow down a bit. Slow down. Send that thought. Slow down. Slow down. I'm not getting this. Tell them. They will work with us how we want them to work with us to some degree. And
Agree.
and it's as simple as that. And the problem is, there are so many crazy ideas sometimes, and if only we would think outside the box, learn the mechanics of it, and understand what we are working with. And this is simply conscious personality. So it's control. It's down to control. And again, like what we spoke of just before about sending bits back, it will help slow it down. If you've got that red car coming in, then the pink bus, and then a blue bike, and then right, okay. If you threw that red car back, okay, whose car is this? This will naturally slow the process down because you will then sense that reply about the car. You can then question that reply. You are kind of slowing it down yourself by communicating back, by throwing back.
I think that should take our time, especially if you're developing it. Take our time with spirit and not. Sometimes I've noticed mediums will be impatient. They don't want to take the time to throw it back or to work with
Yeah,
it. And
I mean,
also,
personally, there are many people who like to see, if you do an hour's demonstration, probably 5 or 6 accurate, deep, meaningful messages, rather than 27 messages that meant nothing. Maybe some of it was right, some of it was a bit touch and go. Yeah. So it's about control and quality. You'll get quality by questioning. That's where the quality comes in, by questioning what it is you are sensing. and build up that that line of communication with them. And it takes practice and time, but you do that when you're sitting for self, sitting in the power. When you are doing that, you are building that line of communication up to be stronger, to be clearer. You are not necessarily teaching anybody anything. You're not teaching yourself how to communicate with spirit. You are simply being. Simply being is top of your list when you sit in the power. And as Julie knows, I don't like sitting in the power as the title. I call it sitting for self. So sitting for self and sitting for spirit. When you are sitting there, you are allowing the natural self that you were born with, which is part of you. You are allowing that to step forward. You shut off the outside world, if you like, and you are allowing that to come forward and become a natural part of who you are. Because we all bury that. We all become Mr. and Mrs. Plastic in this big wide world. We like to kind of emanate what we want people to think who we are. And, we kind of put on that false front to some degree so we can get through the day and manage life, if you like. But that essence of self, who we have within us that we was born with, needs to be allowed to step forward again. And when we do that, and when we do that naturally, we then are waving the flag to to spirit, saying, "Here we are," because that's what they sense. That's what they work with. They don't work with Kevin sat in a chair. They work with the essence of who Kevin is. Kevin's may may well physically be sitting in that chair, but while he is doing that and sitting for self, he is simply allowing that energy of self, that light that you are told to imagine in many of the scenarios. That don't work. But when you are sat there simply being in that space, you are allowing self to step forward. Spirits see that, they sense that, they work with that. Not that light shooting out the top of your head that you're imagining. They don't sense that.
It's sound waves. They sense the
Yeah,
sound.
yeah,
I do believe that they sense that
yeah.
sound, and we sense theirs. But uh, um, how do you distinguish between a medium giving evidence and someone working psychically?
But on the shoes of spirit. Like I said, no, I- I'm
Let's just say
grieving.
I'm not a medium, and I come to you, and you start going psychic. How would I, as a how would I sense that you're psychic?
Right, you would sense that because it, if you could, if you're not a medium, then it's very difficult, and that is a problem, because many people obviously go for the readings, they come away thinking they've had a message from mum, when in fact they haven't had any message from mum at all. And mum said that I've got to change my job. She don't like my new boyfriend. The dress I bought last week was awful. I'm not to wear that. Mum said, mum said, mum said. Would mum do that for a start? That's one way I'd question it. Is that something mum would normally comment on? Is that something that she would have took an interest in? That's how I would kind of question that. Secondly, we're lucky because as mediums, we can sit in front of another medium and we'll know if there's connection. We'll know that instantly. There is an essence of connection there. And unfortunately, we see an awful lot of non-connections, if you like, and a lot of demonstrations that we see in some of the churches and what have you, which is obviously very sad, but it sells the tickets and people accept it. I think we have a responsibility as mediums to put out there the difference.
Yeah.
If we practice what we preach, in other words, we are honest. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with psychics at all, because that is a gift in its own right, I guess. But as long as they're up front and saying, I'm a psychic, I don't work with spirit, but I will work with your energy and I will help you as best I can from what I get from your energy. We need to be on. We need to put that out there to protect the public to some degree. Now, as mediums, we know, but Joe blogs is very difficult to explain the difference because obviously they have an element of hope. And if you
Yeah.
start to knock that and say, well, how do you know that was mum? That could have been a psych. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's probably best not to. That there is an element of hope. I think what we need to do is that we need. And I did a very short video, I think, on being able to tell well, not necessarily being able to tell the difference, but make sure that you go to the right person, the person that has been recommended to, from someone else. Don't just go by advertisement. I think we need to some degree, we need to protect the public ourselves, those that, and be honest with ourselves as well, because there are times we do pick up things psychically. And if we say, I'm not getting this from mum, no, this is coming from self, but I feel that you need to do this or you need to do that. But just be honest. If that's how you've sensed that, be honest about it. We need to divide the two to some degree and make it quite clear. It's very difficult. Now, we know, like I said, as practice mediums, we know, but Joe Blogs doesn't know. How do we tell them? How are they going to know? But my simple answer is just put yourself in mum's shoes. Is that something she would speak of? Is that the first thing she'd say to you?
Mhm.
And yeah,
I come across mediums that are speak a lot of sadness from the readings they're giving. It's picking up a little bit better. Some that
yeah,
I've, but they give a lot of sadness. Or the loved one is speaking about bad times and stuff. I don't experience that
there's a lot
anymore.
of no, there's lots of doom and gloom sometimes. You do hear that. Um, yeah, again, you just simply put yourself the other side of that veil. And what would you say? What would be your first thing you would say? There'd be an element there. No, I miss you, blah blah blah, but that energy understands that it's important that they give proof. You know, the first thing that sitter's going to want is proof. This is who you say it is, and normally it will be something very, very personal that is quite personally linked between the two of them. When you get that, then you're on the right route. You're with the right medium to some degree, but you know, uh, this job you hear it all the time. And I know from working in the past as well, people will ring you up and say, "Oh, I'm a bit stuck with my love life. Can you give me some help?" Or, "What can I do about my job?" I said, "Well, you've got the wrong person because I'm as psychic as a sock." I said, "Oh, you need someone else. I'm sorry." "Oh, I thought you was a medium."
They ask trans mediums that
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
too.
yeah. But, you have to go on and just say, "But no, I communicate with loved ones with spirit. I do not predict your future." And I will no, you've got the wrong person, and they do not truly understand. But I think we have a responsibility to make sure that that is out there, and that's why I did a little video. Um, and again, it's the way its message is given.
Mhm.
I've got a J. No, it's a G. Sorry, it's a G. Or she showed, no, it's an F. And I often think, you've only got 23 more letters to go, and we'll get it. And some of the best known mediums we watch and see all the time, we see that. Why not? I've got a J. Okay, throw it. Why didn't you question that J? Why didn't why are you saying to the sitter, do you know someone who's passed with the initial J? Why don't you go to the energy and question it? This is what we all need to practice and work on. Throwing that back. Okay, why don't you say to the energies, John, like, give it again. Try give me your name, and work at it. And it sounds like, well, you can't sit there talking to spirit all night while the sitter's sipping on their cup of tea, but it's instant. You get practice, so you throw it quickly. You are sensing. So something is well worth practicing.
What do you do when you have a medium? I mean, what would you say? which has been my experience. Someone said they were bringing my son through, and it wasn't my son. And that they saw him wearing this hat on a cap, a baseball cap, and he wore it on the side, and he never did. And then when I said he never did, they insisted he did, and I did everything I could not to remove her from my class, but I didn't. And that's been a while ago. So yeah,
Yeah,
what
it's
do you,
difficult, isn't it?
yeah,
It is a difficult one because there are many well-known mediums who work like that. So, well, I'm telling you now, the
that
only one
seems,
I ever had any respect for doing that was Gordon Higginson, who when he would say, "Well, I'm telling you now, I'm right." Then you heard him say that a few times, but he could get away with it. He could get away with it because the accuracy of the information he'd been given was like, wow, gate number, a door number, address, road number, surname. Okay, now if Gordon gave me all that from a loved one of mine, and then gave me a piece of information that I couldn't accept, I'd be quite happy for him to say, "I'm telling you now, Kevin, that's right." I'd be quite happy to walk away with that. I wouldn't mind that at all because the accuracy of all that other bits and pieces, I would take that. But it depends on the extent of what he was telling me, I guess. And
I
you
know
knew
my son
obviously
didn't wear his cap
you knew
like that.
your
So
son.
I'm just,
Yeah, exactly. So
he wore
it's
Scully. So yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So
But I've seen other
it's
mediums
possible.
do it too, though, where they'll
Oh
push.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like for example, yes, they did drink. You just didn't know they drank. Not to me, but to someone else. And they would say, yes, they did drink. They're showing me they drank, so they must have drank alcohol, maybe behind your back or something like that. You know what I mean? They'll push the information.
The problem is if you've got a piece of information there and you are not sure about it, again, if you're not throwing that information back and trying to get some clarity on it, and you are forcing that down your setter's throat, if you like, then that's just terrible. It's awful mediumship. Why
Yeah,
haven't you questioned that? Why haven't you asked about what does this mean? Because either you're not doing your job properly, either you need to go home and do some more sitting and sit, and work harder at this to get more accuracy. And obviously, we're never going to be 100%. That will never happen. It's something that this world will never see. There has to be
yeah,
an element of doubt. There has to be that balance. Because if, spirit world was 100% real for us all, we'd all be gone. We would not want to go through a lot of this. We would just turn around and say, well, I've had enough of this. Now I've got a large gas bill. I ain't paying that. I'm off. We wouldn't want to experience it. There will always be an element of doubt. There has to be across the population to some degree. So we keep on going. You know, it's there will always be clues. There will, because we need to question this. The very essence of self and soul itself seeks, and it seeks truth. If we all knew it, what would the purpose be? We will never all know 100% because the purpose of life, well, there would be no point. There would be no purpose behind it. So that element of questioning is always going to be there. But yet, the answer to your question is A, that's poor mediumship. There are certain mediums in the past that have got away with that purely through their accuracy of the other information that they've given. But no, this isn't like, oh, I've got a guy with dark hair here who stood beside me. Um, I think it's your son. And he wore a baseball cap to the side of his head. And you went, no, he never wore a baseball cap. And she goes, yes, he did. Yes. That is different to more accurate, load of accurate information, sayings, personal bits of information, stuff. And then that one element is not quite right.
yeah. And he didn't have
Okay,
hair.
we can, yeah, you know, well, it's not
Just,
right at all, but we're kind of, I can sort of bite my lip with that one. But no, you can't. Okay, you accept it. At the end of the day, you're not always going to be right. The best mediums in the world work at, if they can get 80% on the reading, they're happy. They're clicking their feet. They're great. Because we have to why don't we understand it? Why don't we just accept the fact that this is a complex operation that's going on here? We have got the blending of energies going on. There are barriers in the way, not only from our side, but from spirit side. We are going to misread it. We're going to mishear it. We're going to missee it. It's going to happen. That is all part of what we do. This isn't, a telephone. It's not, look at a mobile phone and we're chatting away. There are so many different elements to this that are quite complex. And, we all think, oh, I'm not doing it right. We might have a day where the message wasn't quite how we wanted it to be, but we mustn't always punish self for that. Now, that energy has got the same problems as what we've got. They are trying to merge with us and portray and impress things upon us. And they might not be as good at that as what we think they are sometimes. And it could be quite difficult for them. And some energies are really good at clairvoyance. They may well be able to impress images upon us very well. But at the same time, that sense of personality might not quite come through like it did with the other reading we did, where we saw next to nothing, but we really sensed their personality. But this sometimes can be based around the strength of that energy, its own strength and abilities, not only ours. So it's not always going to be the same and spot on and accurate. We mustn't punish ourselves for that.
My father-in-law my in-laws both were deaf. So when they came through, they didn't speak a lot. But then just a couple of weeks ago, I felt my mother-in-law, and she was letting me know, but they can speak. They don't speak. They didn't speak with voice here, but they can speak with mind, like we do
They
mind to
speak.
mind.
It's like anything else. It's a sense of sound. It's a vibration. Okay, it's an impression, a vibration of thought. When we think to ourselves, we are not thinking through the voice box. We don't talk, but we still hear ourselves. You think, well, where's that coming from? It's not coming from here, but it's still me.
Yeah.
It's because it's the vibration of thought. You have the vibration of thought, and it's exactly how spirit works, the vibration of thought. So if we've passed, I mean, it seems a silly way of putting this, but if we've passed and we imagine ourselves talking, and we can impress that upon an energy that we're trying to communicate with, so it's like a kind of telepathy, if you like, but we are hearing ourselves thought. That's why as mediums sometimes we can pick up accent.
Mhm.
It's purely through the vibration of that thought from the energy we're communicating with, because it's being thought in that accent, in their way, how they would think to self, and that's how we pick up accent. They're not. There's nothing to do with their voice box. It's well, as it's possible they can use. They can impress themselves to such a degree that they can manipulate parts of us, including the voice box. But that's a different story, obviously. That's a different thing altogether. But yeah,
So, how would you help students move beyond giving facts and truly blending with spirit soul? How would you help them? So, or merging, as you call it. This
how
is
would I
not. I'm
help
not.
them?
Yeah. Like, how would you help a student if a student needed to go beyond giving facts and truly blending? And it's probably a kind of like a similar question than earlier. I'm just running out of
Yeah,
questions. You're
yeah,
answering
yeah.
them.
It's what we need to understand is this is not a process. This is not something that walking through the woods in our imagination and then expecting our guide to step out from behind a tree and introduce himself and give us all the philosophy there is. This isn't about process. This is not about imagination. This is not about putting something in our minds to work with. What we need to understand is that if we sit in the essence of spirit and self in that space, right, all what we talk of about the blending from spirit so that they can communicate with it, all that becomes a natural part of that, what we are doing already. Why is it when we're nodding off, sometimes we see those faces, we hear that voice? Why is it when we're in a good book and then we catch something out the corner of our eye? What was that? Or we're into the film on the telly and we're deeply engrossed in this film, then all of a sudden we see something. Why does it happen then? Simple, we let go. Because we are not here. We are in that book. We are in that film. And when we are sitting in that essence of self, we are not here. So by practicing that and allowing it to become a natural part of who we are, will naturally help with that blending of with spirit. Because it's natural. I had a student ask me, "Oh, I'm going to do my first reading. Shall I sit in the power for 20 minutes before I go and do it?" And I said, "Well, why are you doing that? That is not. It's got no link to the reading you're doing whatsoever. Because you should be at a point now where you go into that home of the person you're going to do that reading for. You sit down, you talk about you have a cup of tea, you look out the window, the weather's lovely. Yeah, have you had a good day? Yeah, I've had a lovely day, thank you. But you should be at the point as while you're doing that with the sitter, you are sensing. You are somewhere else. You are picking up. What did you do to do that? You sat and you sat and you sat to allow that energy of self become part of who you are. Because it's out there. And when it's out there, spirit will see. You've turned that light on.
The
Now,
volume, I call
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. It's there
So
natural. It's there naturally. You don't have to sit and hum for 20 minutes before you go and do your reading because why? Yes, no, I understand the breath. When you are aware of breath, you are aware of life source itself to some degree. And it does help just to calm you down. So it's a good way, if you want to sit quietly, concentrate on that breath and then just be. And like I've said before, this is no disrespect at all. But if you read many of the holy books, if you look at some of the gurus and their life stories and what have you, there's not one of them, including Jesus himself, who said, "I'm going to go and sit in the power for 20 minutes." No, that didn't happen. They
you do have to
simply,
attune when you do trance, though. You have
yeah,
to kind of attune and go down here.
yeah, the trance side, yeah. With our mediumship and evidential mediumship, we simply need to spend that time being with self and understanding what is happening. That if we had to write a list of why we do sitting in the power, if you like, top of that list would be to understand self. Many mediums will put to communicate with spirit. If you ask any newbie, someone who's got an interest in this, who wants to learn mediumship, and if I ask them that question, right, sit in the power, what's that for? Oh, that's so we can learn to communicate with spirit. No, no, no. That is probably the biggest mistake ever. Because what they'll do, they'll sit there, hear nothing, see nothing, sense nothing. Or there might have been something, I don't know, there's a bit of a colour, great, lovely. They do that for 6 months, they get frustrated. Trouble is, after month one, they don't realise, but they are starting to get quite wound up. Right, tonight's the night, I can feel it, it's going to happen. I'll sit there, nothing. And the first thing they say to me when they sort of draw in, I don't get nothing. Right, tell me about how you sit. Well, I sit, I shut my eyes and I expand the light from my chest, the light out my head and all this stuff, feel the world and blah, blah. I said, right, just don't do that. Yeah, but I have to do that. Well, why? Who's told you you have to do that? Well, it's in the book. It's on the course. It's on YouTube. Okay. Do me a favor and just go off and simply be. Follow your breath, fine, calm. Just be, enjoy it, absorb it. And the number of times people have texted me, probably even like a week later, wow, if only I'd done that from day one. And it's simply being. We need to understand that we have the ability, we are communicating. It's like for like attracts like. We all know that, we've heard it a million times. So that essence of spirit within us is what attracts the essence of spirit in spirit. That's what attracts. It's not attracted to this, it's attracted to this. And that is our light, our spiritual self, our soul, our being. Our life source is the light that spirits see and work with. And that's what attracts them.
That's great. Does anybody want to ask any questions?
All gone very quiet.
Then?
I must have upset an awful lot of them. Shall I just, I'll just slide down my chair like this and disappear.
If I may ask a question, thank you very much. It's lovely
Okay.
because I've often flustered myself. Oh, I haven't sat down. I haven't been quiet. I've been so busy in my life, getting on with my life and doing my things. So I think I come into class sometimes. And I think I haven't got a hope in hell. But sometimes that's the time where I receive or manage to pick up on relevance. And
Yeah.
it was interesting hearing you talk about the medium is in control. So sometimes you might, I don't hear anything, I sort of feel and I get an impression of things. And then sometimes things that I think, well, I don't think it's necessary for me to tell that person that bit of information because it could potentially upset them. They know the situation.
Yeah, it's
So
very common, very common.
I just
I mean, yeah, it
pass it.
makes right. You are listening to Sal. I don't think I need to tell that person that piece of information. There's your answer, finished.
Mhm.
It is
Okay.
simple as that because there are many times, and there are, believe me, there are mediums who will give messages in the queue in the post office, because they've sent something and they have got a lot of abuse back,
Mhm.
because when we sit in that energy, when we are sitting for self, we are learning about self, and we need to start listening to it. And when we're in that queue in the post office and we sense that energy coming in, we are respectful. I know you're here, I understand that, but your gut feeling is I don't need to give this. This is not the right time. This is not right. We listen to that. So we say, I'm sorry, I don't feel the time is right. It's happened to me. The time is not right. I'm sure our paths will cross again and that opportunity will arise either with me or someone else, but I'm sorry, the time's not right. And I mentally say that. And I don't just ignore them. Go away. I'm queuing up for my stamps. Just go off you go. I know I don't do that. What I do is I respect them. So I'm sorry. And I've got when I've been at work in certain jobs that I've done in the past, when I've sat in people's homes and the energies come in, I know straight away I can give this.
Mhm.
And that gentleman, there's not a clue in the house that they would take it. There's nothing there. You know, this is right. It feels right. I'm listening to myself. Please, give this, give this. I know it's right. There are other times where I've sat in someone's home and thought, "No, time isn't right." I know. It's time and experience. You just learn to listen to self, and self is 99.9% always right. Um, where it goes wrong is where we don't listen to it. And that's a real art form in starting to trust it, believe in it. Okay. So, and again, you're talking about, I haven't had chance to sit, or, I've had a busy day or whatever. Like I say to my students, these conscious energies that we are working with here, okay, like I said, they are just simply us out of body. They've worn the t-shirt. They know what life is. They understand the importance of our purpose. For them, and it's sometimes very difficult to believe, but for them, our purpose is top of that list. Not the message from great auntie so and so to no. Your purpose, your life, your love, your light, your energy, your mountains to climb are top of that list. because without you experiencing those and going through those, you will not move on, you will not move forward, and you will simply return to have to experience those again. You will, you can walk around a mountain as many times as you like. Eventually, you'll have to climb it. It's simple as that. So, they understand how important our purpose is. And if we don't get that sitting in that day, if a week goes past and we haven't sat, that's simply because that week was a lot more important than our sitting for that week. That is number one to them. The fact we got through that week. We struggled that week because we were busy. We were dealing with other things. Maybe a loved one was ill. Maybe, our pet was ill. Maybe all sorts of things go on, as you know. But that is number one. And when they know the energies that work with us truly understand when our time is right. They see that opening. They see that leveling of our pathway, and then we start to work. And it's the old saying, you've heard it a million times. The master will call when the student is ready. And when that student is ready is when that pathway starts to even out. We've climbed those mountains. We've stopped going around them now. We've climbed them, we've dealt with them, we're over the other side, and now it's time to work. Okay, hope that answers your question.
Oh yes, lovely. Thank you very much.
That's
It
okay.
sort of brings a lot of clarity to life experience. Realize it,
You're welcome.
just keep
You're
going
welcome.
on and being happy and enjoying yourself, and spirit will be with you with your cup of tea, out with your dog, or when you're sitting quietly in a chair.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Of course they are. Yeah.
Thank
Don't
you.
worry. Don't worry.
Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
Yeah, let me see if I can put this forward in a more
Okay.
concrete way. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit about energies coming in, because it's not the same every time, and I'm not per se. It's a twofold question. It's talking about when you, as a medium, receives energy that are so strong that it's hard for you to balance. And I understand now, also listening to you and to Julie, of course, that you should ask them to calm themselves down just to be able to give the message.
Yeah.
But it's so strange in a way when energies are so strong, and it's almost that it knocks you out of your socks. And in that aspect, I've also experienced that, well, not many times, but that there is a spirit coming in with this extremely strong energy that no one can take. But I feel there is a purpose for this spirit coming in, and it shows me details that, I mean, it's not my head, let's put it like that. And I understand. I just want to see if you have something to say about the purpose of that, because it feels like, going back a little bit to what you talked about, putting yourself in the spirit's shoes. So if you see a purpose on that also, specifically when there's no one actually that can take either the description or the details or well, the message.
Okay.
Sometimes
I think some of this can relate to, obviously, the circumstances as to which you're giving maybe like a demonstration, if there are a number of people there. What you learn over time, especially in demonstration circumstances, is that people will not take messages. That's something you learn. In the early days, you walk away thinking, "Oh, that was me," because nobody took it. The number of times I've stepped down and walked away thinking, that was odd, that was so strong, that was so deep, yet nobody took it. And then a week later, you get that email. That was for me. I'm sorry, I couldn't take it at that time. It was too raw or whatever. There's sometimes there's that reason behind that. And those energies are very insistent sometimes. They know that loved one's out there. They know they're there, and they will keep pushing. They keep pushing. They keep pushing. This is something you learn over time. You have to be in control, because they will, you know, all the best will in the world. This is an opportunity that may never, in their eyes, but in their sense, may never happen again. So they will grab it. They will grab it a week before. They will grab it 2 weeks before. Spirit are well aware of when we are going to cross paths with their loved ones. They are, you know, we write it in the book, in the diary, right? They knew that well before we did. So they will take opportunity beforehand. That's why when I teach with them as my students, I'll say, take note. Always take note. Don't say, oh, I'll remember that. No, write it down. And the number of times they've done a reading 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks later, and the accuracy of that information in their little notebook was absolutely mind-blowing. It was so accurate. It was, one of my students went off. If it hadn't been for her little notebook, because Mr. Panic set in because she weren't getting anything. And then she remembered what I said about her notebook. So she got the notebook out because she felt that it might have been relevant. And she started reading off her information she'd got while she'd sat in circle. This happened. And the lady was just amazed. Because that is absolute. And because she was reading it from the book, she dropped the barrier of fear. Because she was then focusing on her little book. And in he came with even more information, to the point, and this is a student, to the point where she actually drew him in her book.
Okay.
And she showed the lady and said, is this him? And she goes, hang on. She walked off, got a photograph and put them side by side. And they got sent to me, and it's truly amazing. She's no artist by no means, but the parting, the glasses, the expression, absolutely amazing. So normally there is insistence for reason, but we have to control that. Do not, you know, you did a good thing where you said, I know it's not me, which is brilliant. We have to understand that there is future here. You know, this could well be a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks. They will take the opportunity when they see that light, when they see that way in, if you like, and they know that that reading is going to take place. But this is an opportunity to get some information through to you. This is for my daughter. Tell her. They will take it, but we have to control it. Okay, if it's not right for you at the time, you know, we said no, sorry. Something you learn, but it's you take control. So no, I'm sorry.
Also bringing out the establishing the loved one, if it's a mother or father or brother, sister, something that helps a lot too, right? In the beginning. Yeah. So when you establish a loved one, sometimes the person would be thinking about that loved one and remember, oh yeah, when you agree.
Yeah. No, that's great. Right, I'm gonna have to love and leave you all. I hope that was okay. I hope I've answered many questions. I probably missed a few out, no doubt, but
You did great. Kevin is a mentor, and he has a mediumship circle on Patreon. We do it through Teams now, right? Because they did away with Skype. So I will put all the information in the YouTube on the description, all his information, if anybody would like to speak with them or get in touch.
yeah, by all means, yeah, feel free. Yeah, feel free.
Okay.
Right, lovely. It's lovely to meet you all. Like I said, you know, get in touch if there's anything else they'd like to know or ask about. Feel free.
Thank
Okay,
you
lovely.
So much.
Right. I've got to try and leave now. It took me long enough to get on there to join, so it'll probably take me about half hour to get off.
Wait a minute, don't go right now. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
No problem. No
Thank
problem.
you. Very
Take
good.
care then. Bye bye.